Welcome to the Practice Brave podcast. I am the host, Brianna Battles, founder of Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism and CEO of Everyday Battles. I'm a career strength and conditioning coach, entrepreneur, mom of 2 wild little boys, and a lifelong athlete. I believe that athleticism does not end when motherhood begins, and this podcast is dedicated to coaching you by providing meaningful conversations, insights, and interview topics related to fitness, mindset, parenting, and of course, all the nuances of pregnancy and postpartum. From expert interviews to engaging conversations and reflections, this podcast is your trustworthy, relatable resource for learning how to practice brave through every season in your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Practice Brave podcast. Today I'm here with Katelyn Darkangelo, and yes, that is her real last name. We both have pretty badass last names, and I want to talk about a lot of the badass things she is doing as a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. I love her content. I will have all of her details in the show notes, but make sure that you're following her to see what she's doing, because I feel like Katelyn is a great example of somebody who is immersing herself, coaching in her community, really making an impact there, which is ultimately making a name for her business, for her brand, for her name, and taking that into the online space. So Katelyn, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you based out of? What's your background? All of that stuff.
Yeah, so I'm based out of Brighton, Michigan. I've been here my whole life. But just kind of a background, how I got into the fitness industry and then pregnancy postpartum world. I've loved and known fitness since I can remember. There's pictures of me with my mom doing Tae-Bo and step aerobics back in the late 90s. And so I just grew up in a household that loved fitness. All my siblings, I'm one of 4, and both my parents are really avid fitness goers. So I've never known a life without it. I played softball. That was kind of my main sport going into high school. And then college, when sport kind of ended for me, I really fell in love with fitness and just working out. I kind of loved it during the high school years too. I was more so into the practices and the conditioning sessions rather than the real games, which was kind of funny, but looking back, it makes sense now. And so I went to the University of Michigan, studied exercise science. And it was there that I kind of got into the fitness coaching world. So it was my sophomore year, which was 2015, which was kind of the start of social media-ish time, fitness influencer time. And I actually saw a post to become a Beachbody coach. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I didn't really know anything about the direct sales world, but knew I loved fitness and knew I wanted to kind of go that route. So I was like, all right, why not? Fell in love with the business side of the fitness world. It felt like a game to me, but I was impacting real lives and making real money. And that was a really big eye opener that you could do something different. A lot of my classmates kind of were going physical therapy route or athletic trainer, very structured, what you would do after college kind of things. And that never, with my internships and summer stuff, just never felt like a right fit for me after shadowing and things like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, fell really in love with that side of this new entrepreneurship stuff. And I did that for about a year and a half. And it was at the end of my time at Michigan that I was like, I think I could do my own thing. I think I can create my own thing. I just didn't know what that thing was quite yet. And so knowing that I love the business side, I started taking some more entrepreneurship classes, decided I really wanted to go the business route. So then I went to Duke University for a master's of management and kind of got my feet wet in the business world. It was a great program because it was for non-business majors. So from an exercise world going into the business world, it was great to have both experiences. And it was when I was at Duke where I had some friends asking me to write them workout programs. And I never really thought that I would be writing programs or making workout programs. I don't know why I didn't think I was going to go that route. But again, I was like, hey, why not? See where it goes. And so I wrote my friend a workout program and had a few more classmates just ask me to do the same. So I was like, oh, maybe I should make something that everybody could buy and go from there. And so I ended up launching a little test group for one of my programs. I got about 20 people to join that. And that became my first figure program. I didn't have a name for it at that point. but that was like kind of my company that I started with that first program on January 1st of 2018. But anyways, yeah, so that was like my first workout program. And then I created 2 more that year, and there were physical hard books. So I wrote the like workout program in like an Adobe software, found this free website that would like print and ship the programs to people. And that's just kind of how I started my own programs. And then I eventually fell on the name of Fit is Getting Real, because at that time, it was a very like fake world in the fitness industry. And I hated all the nonsense that was being pushed to people and just very like fake pictures and editing and all this kind of stuff at the time. And I didn't like that at all. And I kind of wanted to come from a place of like truth and like realness. And so one day I fell on the name of like shit is getting real, but I was like, oh, what about like fit is getting real? So that stands for FIGR, or figure is what we kind of call our company now. So anyways, that was kind of my end of college or educational career. I then went to work for Walmart e-commerce in New York. And at the time, that was a great experience for learning the e-commerce side, because I was kind of running my own business within their online e-commerce world. And so like I would work during the day, and then from like 6 to 12 at night, I would just like try to do everything I could to grow figure on the side. Again, this was all physical programs at the time. So that's kind of what I did for a year. And then after a year there, I was like, I want to take this thing full time. So I moved back home to Michigan at my parents' house. I kept trying to hammer it out. My husband came home from, well, boyfriend at the time, was playing professional football in Germany. When he came back, he also kind of joined forces with me and started promoting the physical books we had at the time. And when we were living at, or I was living at my parents, he was living at his parents at the time, we both had family friends who just asked us to train them. And we're like, again, why not? I guess, sure. So we actually used my parents' home gym in their basement to train my mom's friend. And then Anthony trained one of his close friends. And that's literally how we started in-person training. Word of mouth grew, friends of friends. Some of my friends saw that I was posting, that I was training people. And so it literally all started in my parents' basement. And then we built a house that we then created or built our own figure gym in. And so that was 2022, started training clients out of there. It's kind of getting ahead of myself. But then so in 2021 is when I got pregnant with our daughter, Amelia, who is now 3. And that is when my eyes were like totally open to the lack of information, guidance, people promoting the right stuff in the pregnancy and postpartum world. And I kind of knew I was going to love it, but I didn't realize how much my whole life would change around that. Like that's literally what I do full time now. And so during my pregnancy, throughout that 2021, 2022 year, learned everything I could. I was kind of tracking my own stuff. I had clients at the time who were also getting pregnant. So I had that initial like immediate one-on-one or hands-on experience training clients. And then I kind of just grew things from there. I did one certification. Didn't know about you at the time, but it's funny because I look back and I was like tagging postpartum athlete, thinking it was like, I didn't know it was a business account. I thought it was just like a cool like tagline. So I was like tagging you in my pregnancy post, even though I had not done your certification yet. So it's funny to kind of look back on that. But so I ended up kind of doing the original certification, learned the basics, but didn't really dive into the field quite yet. And then a year after that, it was actually Christine Zifra. She's been to one of your in-person. She had followed me and she's like, your vibe and like everything you post is like so in line with what Brianna like teaches. Like you should totally do her certification. I was like, oh, but I already have one. Like I'm already kind of like going through, like it's going good. And then for like a few months, like every time I would post something that was similar to yours, she was like, no, like you really need to take her course. I'm like, okay, fine. And so I ended up doing that. And then from there is kind of really where my confidence as an in-person hands-on trainer took off. Like I really had the hands-on tools versus like a textbook. It was good information I had before, but like after taking your course is kind of where I really solidified myself and kind of went like headfirst into the whole postpartum pregnancy world. And anyways, so from there, I've been kind of in that field. I do postpartum classes, ladies general classes, mom and baby workouts, and a whole host of other stuff. So that's in the like kind of functional fitness, strength, metcon world.
Yeah. I mean, girl, your resume is so impressive, first of all. So congratulations. Like that's a big deal. And I don't know if everyone like really realizes the extent of which like you hustled and what that era was like, especially. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, but to be able to find an entrepreneurial pathway from an exercise phys world and in with that as your undergrad, like that wasn't a pathway that was very intuitive. Certainly not for me. I didn't get into that, the entrepreneurial side until 2013, but that was around that time that like Instagram was starting and but it was a hot mess of what we saw online, as what you're saying. And so to find that entrepreneurial pathway that early, especially coming out of college, that's a really big deal. And then to still be in the game and evolving your game now, I want you to hear that. That's
Thank you. I
there's a lot
appreciate
to be said. There's a lot to be said for that, just like knowing the context of where you came from and also what that season and era was like to build a business and to start showing up online. That's been pretty cool. I don't know. I think that's a big deal.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been just evolved. Like I've never kind of stayed stagnant. I think that's the most important part when you are going through all the craziness. Like I had no idea 10 years ago, it was exactly almost to the month actually. Yeah. 10 years ago, exactly that like starting a random like beach body thing I had never thought that I would be here with a home gym, like running this with my husband in the pregnancy postpartum space. Like I could never have pictured it then, but it's like exactly where I know I should be now. So it's just been like a journey of figuring out the right route.
That is so awesome. So where you coach out of is just your home then?
Correct. Yes, it's in our basement.
Great. And it seems like you have like really full classes, and I'm assuming that you can sort of work your work schedule around your real life.
Yeah, it's funny because like I'm a work from home mom, but like when you go down into the gym, it doesn't feel like I'm still a trainer. So like it's kind of a hard thing to explain to people. Like, yeah, we have a 1,600-foot square gym in our basement, but like it's also like I work from home upstairs. Like we obviously have our online part and then our in-person part, but yeah, it's all been word of mouth. And I think honestly that having a home gym is like an awesome thing, but it's not for everybody. But it has helped us build a lot of trust, friendships, community, like much stronger than like maybe a public space have been able to provide. And I think not that saying that you can't do that in a public space because I think everybody can, but I think really making sure that is the foundation of your training of like building friendships, building trust, building community. That's like, I think what has helped us excel in filling our classes and offering different things and kind of standing out in a space that can be very muddled.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think just that level of truly running your own business, like you have a brick and mortar, it just happens to be at your home. And yeah. It's so incredibly convenient and probably goals for so many people, so many people listening. And I think there's a lot of us that like run classes and have done like clients out of our garage. And I think that's a great element too, especially if you're getting started and you're just kind of dabbling with coaching in person. One thing that we talked about before we hit record was that benefit of having in person to sort of feed the online. So can you talk about like what that process was like for you and how that got started?
Absolutely. Yeah. So like, my whole foundation kind of, I guess in the training world really started when I started training my mom's friends in her home gym. And it was that in-person experience that I was able to not only get the reps in of like seeing people like in person, like being able to make adjustments on the fly, listen to their needs, like see what adjustments and modifications are needed. So from like a programming skill form, that kind of stuff, that you need that in person to gain the education and knowledge from that experience, but then also using that as like content in a sense to then use that and to be able to show the online space like, hey, I am getting my reps in. I am seeing this population daily. Now that's really transferring in because I see pregnant postpartum moms literally every single day. And I think that's a huge separator in today's space when there's such a huge push for just running an online business, starting an online business. You can read any textbook you want. You can read all the research articles. You can do all the stuff. But until like a mom is in front of you saying like, hey, I have this symptom right now, like what can I do different? that kind of stuff gives you the information you need to make your programs that you're going to sell online. It also gives you the coaching, like relatability, personality, to like deal with different clients. And then it also gives you like something to showcase to the online world, like, hey, I am actually coaching this population. I think that's why I have been able to be successful with the online and the in-person sides of the business, because like sourcing from the in-person experience.
Yeah, that's absolutely, I mean, that's a hill I've been dying on since, I don't know, the beginning, like really the beginning. When I first started putting out any online content, was like, the only reason I can be credible and can put out things online is because I am doing this in real life. Like, yes, you can have the education, but until you're getting the real life experience, having the different people in front of you, that's what scales your business, and that's what scales your credibility. That's what scales your knowledge. And ultimately, that's what helps scale into the online space, sharing there. But it's very hard to just have an online presence, especially with this particular population.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like I followed you with the whole Squat University, people saying like, well, what makes you credentialed or whatever. And like, it's funny because me coming from, I mean, I went to the University of Michigan, got an exercise science degree, and not one single paragraph was about pregnancy and postpartum fitness. So like, even like if I had my degree in that, like that didn't give me enough rest. Even though I did like certifications, that's fantastic. You do need that information, but not even the certifications, I think, makes me the best coach. It's literally the in-person reps, the amount of people amount of different scenarios I've been able to coach through, the amount of different mindsets you have to coach through. Like, it's truly the in-person stuff that I think gives you the most credibility. And I think that's so missed in, especially like medical obviously, but the fitness world. They're like, okay, what are your credentials? What are your letters behind your name? And I don't think any of that matters if you don't see people in person.
Oh, 100%. Like you said, we both come from a background that is specific to exercise science or exercise phys, high levels of coaching, the highest levels of certifications you can get. And there wasn't anything in there that was like, not even just pregnancy and postpartum related, but honestly, like female athlete related, beyond like ACL injuries and like body dysmorphia, essentially, and like eating disorders. And like, that was always so annoying to me, even back then, that there just wasn't like, that's the only thing that we're like pulling from here. So it's been interesting just to see like how this has evolved over time. And that was really the pushing point to create that certification, was this isn't taught. That's the problem. It's like, it's straight up not taught. It doesn't fully exist, especially for female athletes, where it's not like, we don't need that buy-in that it's healthy and beneficial. We know that it's healthy and beneficial. That has been like proven over and over and over, like in our research. It's 2025 at this point. And it was just really trying to get information out there that was specific to coaches like me and the people that I was working with in real life, and saying, if we're actually going to like create any change in the information and approach that women take during pregnancy and postpartum, we have to get in front of the coaches that are guiding them.
Right. I think that's what made your certification so powerful, and like switching my mindset or confidence, was that a lot of it was like the videos of like actually demoing the movements, or like actually coaching a pregnant or postpartum mom. Like, obviously you can't you're having the in-person like certification, so that's fantastic too. But like the closest thing you can get to that besides that is that video feedback. And I think that's why I gained so much confidence to start isolating myself in this field, because when you do like get trained in that regard, like that helps you see in real life how to cue someone, how to do a movement. And that gives you then the confidence to go into the gym and actually do it yourself. And then from there, it's trial and error. You figure stuff out on the fly. At least you have that baseline to go from, and then you kind of can put the pieces together from there.
Totally. And I mean, you have like that visual. And I think so many of us as coaches, like we learn by moving, we learn by observing movement. And then once you can see like, oh, okay, I understand based on this movement pattern, the adjustments that I need to make with this client, because that's similar. Like I just saw that. I know that means she likely has a hypertonic pelvic floor, or maybe she's, a pressure out person or a pressure down person, or whatever it might be. You start to pick up on these clues just by like watching somebody move for a couple reps, and then you know what to do with them. But that's just not conventional knowledge. And that's, I think, the tricky part even if you come from an exercise science and like different personal training certification background, like that is not taught at all.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's talk about the business side of things, because obviously you're very entrepreneurial. You've had that gift or inclination from the get-go, it seems. And in terms of now really like being narrowly focused on just serving the pregnant and postpartum population, what has that been like for you? What does that actually look like from a business standpoint, even from like a financial standpoint? How did you know that like, okay, I'm onto something here?
Yeah. I mean, initially it was it was like needing it for myself. I know you've talked about that a ton too. Like you kind of become the person you need in a sense. So in 2021, that was 4 years ago. Even back then, there was like, it was even a crazier world back then. I think we're starting to get somewhere now, but it's been a crazy field for a while. But when I first became pregnant, I was like, holy crap, there's like nothing out here for me. I'm trying to figure it out. And so I got so invested and so excited about the field. So I just kind of knew that this was my my field, my thing. And so I knew I needed to get the reps in, get educated and all that stuff. And so throughout my pregnancy, I actually tracked every single one of my workouts. And knowing that in the future, I wanted to provide valuable programs for people who weren't in my area, as well as be able to coach that population through my classes. And so I kind of went through that whole journey, went through the certifications and stuff. And so over time, I always had my ladies classes. I guess that was the source of like my offerings now, because I was able to find those people, and people started coming to my ladies classes who were going to get pregnant, who were postpartum, because they just knew that that was the field I was kind of into. And so that kind of naturally grew into some of those clients asking for one-on-ones. So I kind of naturally gravitated. That's part of my business too, is just one-on-one clients. I don't take a ton of them, because I do like the more postpartum class setting, and I'll talk about that in a second. And just group setting. I think that's really powerful for moms to be in a group setting during these phases of life. So for my personal interests and for the interests of the mom, kind of push everybody into the class setting. So it kind of sourced into one-on-one. And then from my experience myself, my education, and then training moms within my ladies class, I then created a figure pregnancy and a figure postpartum app subscription program. So there's from week 6 to week 40 for my pregnancy program, and then week 1, essentially postpartum through year 1. So it's a whole 12-month program for postpartum. And so that's kind of like my online bread and butter side of the business that I really use my online platform to grow. I probably wouldn't use social media as much if I was just trying to grow my in-person. But so that's kind of my main source when it comes to the online space, is those two programs. And then from there, it was actually one of your podcasts that you had talked about serving your local community in the pregnancy postpartum space. And it was another, I think you did like a workshop webinar or something for business about talking about the 6-week postpartum class. I'm like, oh, like, why not try that? Like, maybe it will work, maybe it won't. And that has ran fantastically. I don't know if that's a word. Ran great. I'm about to start my 5th round of that in April. And that has been a huge part of our business now. So my ladies classes are my main, like Monday through Friday, 9:00 set time frame. And then I have my online programs and then my postpartum class. So those are kind of like my main sections. I also run a BYOB, bring your own baby, mom and baby workout once a month, just for fun. Kids run around, moms work out body weight or use their baby as the weight too. So that's kind of like a specialty class. And then, so those are like my main sources, I guess, of income. And I've had like local CrossFit gyms ask me to come in and talk to them about just being comfortable when a pregnant or postpartum mom comes into the gym. Pelvic floor therapy, I've done like a talk for them from the fitness side of things, and different kind of industries there. And then just different like local school communities have asked me to run mom and baby groups. So kind of like, again, working in the local community, but kind of accessory stuff in addition to my main stuff.
I love, and I tell as you know, in the certification, like, I think one of the best business models for a P&PA coach is to, yes, get involved locally. But the way to do that is to have that 6-week postpartum class. So you're getting a very niche avatar of a person but ultimately they can grow into being a client on retainer, whether that's in a women's specific class or a CrossFit group class or an F45 class, whatever it might be. But running a 6-week postpartum program and helping somebody recover and then feed into the rest of whatever kind of business offering you have, even if it's like online, that's an incredible way to, yes, impact your community, but also scale your coaching and your overall business. And I've seen, I was running that in 2013, that exact business model, 2013 through 2020. And that is ultimately what helped create what is all the things pregnancy, postpartum athleticism, was just all those reps working with women for years and years, having those postpartum programs that gets you really connected with the OBGYNs, the midwives, the birth educators, the doulas, the lactation consultants. And then it naturally feeds into that postpartum program, which ultimately feeds into the rest of your coaching or the gym that you're running out of. It's a very positive business model. And we see coaches running that out of a multitude of places and gyms and capacities, whether they're a CrossFit gym owner or they work as a trainer, like I said, like an F45, or they work independently like you do. Regardless, it seems to be a really effective business model. So can you tell me, is it a 6-week postpartum program that you run?
Yes. Yep. 6 weeks. I do Monday and Thursdays at 10:30. And then I do love like having that set time frame too, like a 6-week thing. Cause like you said, then if they want to go into my ladies classes, I already know their tendencies. I know that they have the foundation. So I'm not worried about them in a class setting, even if they are only 8 weeks postpartum still at the time. I know they know what to look for, how to navigate fitness in the class setting. But then from like a collaboration standpoint, it actually gives you a really good something to go into a pelvic floor therapist office, for instance. If you say, hey, I'm running this 6-week postpartum class, I have generally 9 to 12 moms within each class. Would you like to be on the referral list, or like kind of giving them here's my exact group of clientele that I'm looking for. Same thing with like massage, chiro, doulas, whoever, and being like, hey, like this is one of my specialties. It's exactly the clientele that you're looking for. Like, let's kind of collaborate or make this relationship. And so it gives you an edge when going into even CrossFit gyms, I've noticed too, because they don't specialize generally in that. Or if you're working out of them, obviously you would be working with them. But you can say like, hey, do you have any moms who are pregnant or like early postpartum who are having issues in your class? I can help. It's a totally separate business model, even though it's fitness. I can help recover them so they can go back to you quicker to your class setting. You don't have to worry as much of them having issues and having to drop out of classes. They come back quicker postpartum, so they're not pausing their membership for longer. And so you can even make collaborations within other gyms themselves because you have a specialty that is collaborative with their classes, not competing with them.
I 100% agree. Absolutely what I did. And it really drives like a lot of impact, a lot of credibility in your community, a lot of clientele. And ultimately, like I started making really good money, and I didn't expect that. Like I didn't expect that from like my little like side gig, I guess, that I had started, that could be a way that I could be home with my son at the time before I even had Chance, because I was like, oh, I can like coach just a few hours a week. Really, I can make it what I need it to be. Coach a postpartum class at least once a quarter. Sometimes different years I would do more than that. And then have this women's class. And ultimately, like it created a business where it was only adding to our life. I didn't have to like pull from my husband's income essentially to fuel the business. Like it just was like this self-generating machine. And that unlocked so much possibility that it's almost to take this back to the beginning of our conversation. That was not a pathway laid out for us. If you were going to be a coach, if you were exercise science background, that's a really non-traditional route. And ultimately we don't have a ceiling on our income potential either. And that again was never laid out to us as an option. If you're coming from an exercise science background or even like a personal training background, it's like, well, go and you work for this gym. Or I can like create my own thing on my own terms and coach as much or as little as I want and have potential to make more.
Yeah. And it's cool being in this field. I have a 3-year-old right now. And it's cool because since I am training moms and I have childcare available, and I've like changed the time of the class to accommodate more for moms with like kid drop off or like infant sleeping in. So it's at 9:00, just works well. But it's cool because I am coaching, but my daughter can also like hang out with the other kids in the childcare area. So it's like I'm doing my work, but I also am involving my kid, and it's really cool. And even if we don't have childcare for the day, like she loves doing bench press with all the class or doing the warm up, or she'll like pretend like she's coaching the class. And so it's a very mom friendly, obviously because we're coaching moms, but from like being the trainer or being the business owner, like it's a great field to be in because we can involve our own kids and you don't feel like you're pushing them to the side to do your work. You're kind of including them in the fun of all of it.
And I can tell you, like, I'm a little bit ahead of you. My kids are 11 and 7 now. And it's wild to see just how much that early influence of like them being in that gym environment has impacted them as like little athletes and how they think and what they do and what they're inclined to. And it's like, I've never like pushed it on them. That's just sort of been a natural part of our like family ecosystem. And mommy coaching, like that's just, it's so normal to them to be in those environments. And it has paid dividends that I didn't even know was possible back then when they were like little babies at the gym. It's pretty fun to see.
Yeah. She loves the gym environment. She knows how to like run on the assault runner already or like do like little things. And so it's really a joy to see that already, like kind of how my mom already instilled in me. It's fun to see like she's not going to know a life without fitness either. And just the benefits that can bring throughout the entire lifespan, obviously. But it's just a really, really good feeling to have as a mom.
Yeah. And just trust me, it truly keeps getting better. Like you can see the like fruits of your labor that you didn't even realize, like things that you didn't realize that you were instilling just by their exposure to those environments of being around you coaching and what they're seeing with movement. Like it's so cool to see my kids in this stage of life and how that's like, I don't know, how it's paid off, I guess. I want to talk about some things that I think a lot of coaches just feel so overwhelmed with, and they kind of get in this analysis paralysis. So I'm hoping that you're willing to be really open here.
Okay.
How did you figure out what to charge? Where did you start with your clients, especially maybe this particular population of working with moms, and then scaling it to where you are now? I think a lot of times, maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but sometimes it would feel hard working with moms because you're like, oh, I know, like maybe they're not working anymore. There's a financial barrier there. They didn't pay you. And there's just like, so unless you have like a really solid business model in place, it can pull on your heartstrings in a way that is different, I think, from traditional business or even traditional fitness industry. So can you give me some insight on what your pricing and business model is working with this population?
Yeah, for sure. So we can start with the postpartum class specifically, because that's kind of a big chunk. So the first one I did, again, I've kind of learned on the fly and just used each next session as a way to test a new price or a new model. So I started with what I would really not recommend. And because from that exact standpoint, I was like, oh, moms are kind of like, what if the kid is sick one day? And what if like they have, I want to be really accommodating for the mom population. So I charged them $70 for 2 sessions, like to get for the first 2 sessions, and then pay per class for the remaining 10, because, if, a kid is sick or something happens, they can't make it. Like, I don't want them to pay for a class they didn't come to. And so I thought that would be a really easy, and it was essentially from a starting off standpoint. I had no content for it. It was kind of the start of the class. So from a cheapness standpoint off the bat, like a whatever, and then from a mom accommodation standpoint. So it was $35 a class, but I charged $70 for the first 2, and then they would pay per class. As you can imagine, they came to like a few of them, and then they kind of dropped off because they had no money tying them to the class. So the next round, I did pay half upfront because same thing. I want to accommodate. I don't want to push any boundaries because a lot of these people are my friends. Again, we're in our home basement. So it's a lot of like friends of friends or just local people. So I just wanted to be accommodating again. It worked better because they wanted to use all the classes that they had purchased. Still, sickness happens, kid things go on, but still there was a kind of drop off the last few sessions, which I really wanted to emphasize because there's a big gap between recovery and like full send. And that's kind of the gap I love to bridge is like, okay, what do you do after your pelvic floor is recovered before you hit max lifts? So that's kind of the section that I really want to emphasize in my class.
You were charging $35 per class. At first, you started like just a couple classes, and then you scaled it to pay for half the classes and then per class after that. And then what happened?
And then I was like, okay, I'm stopping this whole they fall off in the last two classes thing. And so I charged, I think it was $270. So I dropped the per class amount, but charged the full upfront cost. And that was scary to me at first because I'm like, oh, that's like a bigger amount of money. Like, I don't know if people can pay that, but I like tried to kind of use I forget what the per class is off the top of my head, but it was less, but I didn't have any pushback from a cost perspective. So I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. That class went really well. Definitely had more engagement through the end. Obviously, again, some people didn't use the classes, but at least it tied them to the class to come. And then the last two ones, I upped it to $300, and then $360 was my last one. And my next one, I'm charging $375 for two reasons. One is it's becoming more of like a established thing. I have now a year and a half worth of client practice of like fine tuning the programming, making it really effective. So I feel like from a value point, I can provide more value. I think it is worth that. I think it's worth more than that, but we got to kind of meet in the middle there. And then just from a standpoint of it ties moms to the class, the more value you show that it is, the more value they feel it is. And so, again, I haven't had any pushback on cost because they know the value and they are more dedicated themselves. And I think that's really what you want to get out of that class is for moms to actually benefit from it. And I think that helps them really value the classes themselves.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm so grateful that you shared like that side of things because there's so many, as you know, like, what do I charge for this? What do I do? And actually charging what it's worth. And it's one thing when you're like, this is my first round, like, okay, then maybe don't set a super high price tag. That's okay. You need reps. You need the street cred. You can use it for marketing. You could use it for word of mouth. Cool. But ultimately, as this thing grows, your expertise really matters. You've invested a lot to learn, and you're offering something that is very unique and very specific that they cannot get from their typical gym. You just can't get that specific type of class literally anywhere else. As I tell P&PA coaches, like you have like the special sauce. And because you have that, you have to leverage that and not be afraid to charge. And I totally get that there's we all struggle with that. And like to be really direct as a mom and working with moms for so long, they can be really flaky. So attaching a price point where that's going to instill an extra layer of commitment, that is really helpful. And then it secures your business model. And it's not that you can't be empathetic and have certain systems put in place where you make sure like, okay, maybe they can make up a class or they have a credit here or whatever it might be. You can do a lot to be really accommodating while still charging what you're worth. Because if you miss a doctor's appointment, you still get charged for that. And I'm not saying that this is the same thing, but ultimately it helps you run a business like a business. And it also ultimately helps them in what they signed up for and what they want. I started again in 2014 is when I actually started a postpartum class. And I charged $150 for 6 weeks. And by the end in 2020, I think I was charging a little over $300 per 6-week session in California. I would charge so much more than that now, especially being in California. So just to give you guys an idea of what she's doing in Michigan, what I was doing in California years ago. So there's so many people like, I'm charging $75 for this or whatever. And I was like, no, like this is your range. You can adapt it for the area you're in for sure. Be able to read the room, but ultimately do some market research and know that you can always scale and you should scale your pricing over time, especially as you get better and you're seeing that demand. maybe you have a wait list, maybe you can cap it at a certain amount. Do you cap your postpartum classes?
Yeah, 12 is the most I've had, and that is probably the most I would have. It was always fine. I would kind of average like 7 to 10 people per class anyways, because of people, not being able to come or whatever. So there's only like a few classes where it's that many, but that still wasn't a crazy amount. So yeah, kind of that 10 to 12 range is what I try to hit. But like anywhere from, 8 to 12 is probably a good range.
And then you run a women's specific class also, and that's a Monday through Friday, you said?
Yeah, so I have Monday through Friday, 9 to 10. And like you said, kind of using that postpartum class as a feeder in. And also, like you said, I do use, if somebody says, oh, well, like I can do the class, but I will be gone this week, so I'm going to miss those 2 classes. And I always say, hey, like you can come and just do one of my general fitness classes. 1, because it helps them recoup their value, but 2, it gives them a taste of what my classes are like, kind of for free in their eyes. But for me, it's really good for them to see like a taste of that and hopefully then transition into it after. But yeah, so for my ladies classes, and that's kind of what I started with back at my parents' house that I've been building for the last 6 years now. I've been hosting that class, ladies only. So I love that kind of vibe. 9 to 10, Monday through Friday. I never do weekends because you try to keep your business and life separate a little bit sometimes. But for that, we've also adjusted our offerings. I used to do $200 a month for unlimited, a 10 class pack that never expired, and then $25 drop-ins. What that is currently is $175 a month for unlimited, a 5 classes per month option that auto renews. So they have 5 classes. So if somebody was going to come once a week or whatever, and then $25 drop-ins has to stay the same. And that seems to work really well. And then $5 for drop-in childcare for a family. So if they have 3 kids, it's still just $5, because I want that to be a reason for them to come to class while still covering a little bit of the childcare cost. And that has worked pretty well for us over the last few months.
Yeah, that's awesome. You just have like a babysitter that's just there at that.
Yeah. So funny thing, one of my postpartum class clients is a yoga instructor, and she had approached me after the postpartum class and was like, hey, can I run a yoga class out of your gym? Kind of for moms, same thing. And so she has started running a yoga session of 6-week kind of time frame in the gym, which is really complimentary for those who like the yoga side and the workouts or the weight side. And then it was really hard to find childcare. It's kind of been flaky over the last few months or year, I guess it's been since I've been offering it. But then she actually was like, oh, like I'll watch the kids. So in our basement, there's like the gym, and then there's a little rise up in the stairs. And then the other side of the empty gym is just play area with a bunch of toys. So we don't have a formal childcare, it's just kind of like person who hangs out and makes sure they stay over there and plays. And then if the kid has to go to the bathroom or whatever, the mom will help them, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we just kind of use her, and just, I have a bunch of different, family friends or just people, and just kind of pay them off per class. That's worked really well for us.
That's so awesome. I mean, I think it's really incredible to hear about women that are able to pave their own unique way as an entrepreneur, do it in the midst of motherhood, and do it in a way that just like really complements your life, but is contributing to your overall like family income and impact to the community. And I think that is ultimately like the side of pregnancy and postpartum athleticism that I didn't quite see yet at the beginning of it, but just how it's like come into like really scale somebody's lifestyle, like what we're able to do as mothers, as coaches, as women, where I don't know, like I just never thought I would be owning a business. And there's so many coaches that are like, I didn't really think that this would be my pathway. I thought I was going this way. And it just kind of unlocks new possibilities. And I think that you have a great story that just shows the pathway that it can take and how it complements the rest of your life and your interests.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been so fun because like knowing fitness, how much that's benefited my life, to be able to use that in a business model to then help other moms feel that benefit, that, like just being consistent in the gym, being strong, like how much that helps through pregnancy, through postpartum, like helping moms, just being there to listen to their birth story. Like there's a lot more impact that you can make in a mom and a family's life. Like I truly feel like this is my way that I am like contributing to the wellness of the world. Like when we heal and help moms, like they create this unit for the family that is just so powerful. So to be able to do that for a business and make a living out of it and like have that be like a really primary source of our income. We have a few, my husband trains with figures, so he has his own clients and everything too, but it really is, it's so fun to like have that be what I do on a daily basis. Like there's nothing more powerful to me than that.
Oh, it's so amazing. What piece of advice, or I guess if there's somebody who's like thinking about becoming a P&PA coach, what piece of advice do you have for them? Maybe if this has been on their radar since apparently you listen to some of those podcasts already, which is exactly like you.
I guess like the posture I always go at stuff with is just like, why not? Like from the very beginning, starting in my like the first Instagram post that came up to be a beach bag coach. Why not? I don't know. When a friend asked me to write him a workout program, okay, why not? Like starting my first figure program, like, oh, let's just see what happens. Why not? Like, and each of those like yeses, and I don't even know if they should be yeses because they were more like, they weren't like super strong. Like this is what I meant to do at the time. Like at the time I was just like, oh, this is a cool next step. Why not? Like, let's lead to the next thing. And so I think in today's society, it's so common to be like, to say no, like, and of course that's in different contexts and everybody has a different opinion on stuff. But like, for me, it's the yeses along the way that has either led me straighter towards this path, or when I said yes and it didn't work out, okay, that's cool. That's something that I know, like nutrition, for instance, that's not my realm. I had a friend who asked me to write a meal plan, hated it, never did it again. So like even the yeses that lead to like, oh, this sucks, like at least you know that that's not a thing. And so to just kind of go, even if you're like, especially I guess for people who are on the fence, like, why not? Like just try it. And if like, maybe it is like your thing, like same, like when Christine came to me and like, you should just do this certification too. And I was like, okay, like why not? Like more education kind of thing, you know? So I was in the same position. Why not? and that kind of led to here. And so there's never, I think people sometimes wait for this like big cosmic shift of like, this is exactly the time and exactly the thing I need. And I don't think anything in my journey has felt like that. It's just been a next thing.
Next
like,
right thing, baby.
A friend, like my mom's friend, she was going on a bike trip to Italy and she wanted to have strong legs for her bike trip. That's literally what started my in-person training journey. And so if I would have said, oh no, like, I don't feel like it, like I might have never gotten into training at all. So like, instead of saying like, no, just say, oh, like, sure. Like, let's see if I like it or not, instead of automatically cutting down at things that are new. So I guess coming from a perspective of trying a new certification, joining P&PA, just, yeah, why not?
It's almost like there's something to be said for practicing brave. I don't know. Like, maybe there's something there. It definitely goes a long way. But Katelyn, thank you so much for sharing your story and being like really vulnerable and open to like what your coaching looks like, what your background is, and just like your business. I think you're doing a great job showcasing what's possible and just like really scaling your impact and the work that you're doing in your community. So where can people follow along?
Instagram is the main place at Kate Darkofit, Kate. There's like a million ways to spell Katelyn. At Kate Darkofit. That's where you can DM me anytime. I love talking I've had actually P&PA coaches reach out with some of these same questions. So love chatting on there. That's kind of my main spot. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And if you are in Michigan, Katelyn is your girl.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practice Brave podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and help us spread the work we are doing to improve the overall information and messaging in the fitness industry and beyond. Now, if you are pregnant and you are looking for a trustworthy exercise program to follow, I have you covered. The Pregnant Athlete Training Program is a well-rounded program for pregnancy with workouts for each week that are appropriate for your changing body. That's 36 weeks of workouts, 3 to 4 workouts each week, and tons of guidance on exercise strategy. We also have an at-home version of that program. If you are postpartum and you're looking for an exercise program to follow, the 8-week postpartum athlete training program would be a really great way to help bridge the gap between rehab and the fitness you actually want to do. From there, we have the Practice Brave Fitness program, which is an ongoing strength and conditioning program where you get new workouts each week and have a lot of guidance from myself and my co-coach, Heather Osby. This is the only way that I'm really offering ongoing coaching at this point in time. If you have ever considered becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, I would love to have you join us. Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism is a self-paced online certification course that will up-level your coaching skills and help connect the dots between pelvic health and long-term athletic performance, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. Become who you needed and become who your online and local community needs by becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. Thank you again for listening to the Practice Brave podcast. I appreciate you. And please help me continue spreading this messaging, this information, and this work.